Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are taking a look at every single type within the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're going to go over them and rank them on how good each individual type is. And now this is just going to be based on like how good they are holistically, meaning including like how good they've been throughout history. So for example, let's actually talk about the first type I want to talk about, which is Beast Warrior. Beast Warrior, right now, not really doing a whole lot, but throughout the history of the game, has been pretty good. I'm going to put it in A tier, and the reason for this is because of things like Zodiac, things like Fire King, or not Fire King, Fire King, things like, Fire Fist was the one I was thinking of, and then of course Tri-Brigade as well. Lots of decks have utilized Beast Warriors very effectively, and it has been a very consistent type. It has things like Tenki to boost its consistency and be able to search out additional cards. It has the Zodiacs to give you additional cards as well, and to really help out in that regard. And then obviously it has all of the Tri-Brigade stuff to help as well. So all in all, I think it's just a really solid type right now. Next up we have Beast. Beast I think is solidly below Beast Warrior, but that's kind of it. It is a very middle of the road kind of type, right? There's nothing really to stand out about it. It's good, but it's not insane in any capacity. Next up we have Winged Beast. Winged Beast is kind of interesting because more recently it has gotten significantly better, but early on it really didn't have anything. The best that it had was the fact that DD Crow happened to be a Winged Beast, and that was kind of it. There were a few other things. I would imagine, I'm struggling to think of anything Winged Beast related prior to like Lyrilisc coming out. So yeah, I'm sure there was. Probably. I know like there were some ritual beasts that were winged beasts, but there weren't really like many decks that were winged beasts. Harpies obviously existed, but they didn't really receive support until more recently, obviously. They were good in Duel Links. So there's that. And then obviously more recently we have the birds, that being both Lyrilisc and Flu. So, you know, it definitely got better, but holistically not really that many good things that it did. Next up we have Cybers. Cybers honestly is insane. This may be one of our first S tier, but I'm going to put it in A for now. It's just very, very strong. Every single Cybers is... not every single Cybers, but like a lot of Cybers is very usable and very impactful. It's a very strong archetype, has lots of good boss monsters, including very good extenders, and just overall very, very strong. Next up we have Dinosaur. Dinosaur has had like one deck ever, and it's Dino, and that's it. Now granted, they have a few really impactful cards, things like Miscellaneousaurus, Oviraptor, and UCT, but other than that, they have the one deck. They have the one deck, they have the one plan, they have the one strategy, and that's kind of it. So I feel like it's a slightly below average type. Yeah? It hasn't really been meta all that often, right? Maybe it would be on the same tier as Beast and Winged Beast, but maybe I'd bring these down instead. Maybe. We'll see. Next up, Divine Beast. Okay, Divine Beast is just bad. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Divine is just bad. It's not a good type. Okay? However, obviously it's S tier. It's the Divine Beasts! What do you mean? They're gods! Of course they're S tier. Next up, Dragon. I feel like I do not need to explain myself with this one. Dragon is the best type in the game, and it's not close. It's not close. Dragon has the most amount of support, the most amount of top decks, the most amount of synergy with other strategies, and the most amount of boss monsters. Just like across the board. I think the only other archetype the only other type that could compete is Warrior, because Warrior is also S tier, but even with that being said, I think in comparison, the amount of decks and more specifically like boss monsters and stuff like that Dragon has It's just the best, and it's not close. Warrior is insane, though. Very, very strong. Has lots of really good searchers, things like Rhoda, etc. Lots of really top-tier strategies are warrior-based. You know, the best deck ever has a warrior, you know. Tier Element. Rhino Heart. There you go. Rhino Heart, right? Yeah, Rhino Heart. Anyway. But, you know, all of the other myriad of decks, Infernoble. I mean, DD Warrior Lady early on. Necroz was warrior-based, etc., right? The list goes on. So, yeah, Warrior is absolutely insane. Even very, very early, you had Exiled Force to kind of do generic, insane things. You know, destroy a card. But yeah, Warrior has always been and will pretty much always be insane. Next up, we have the next S tier, which is Spellcaster. Spellcaster, look, hey, when your 3 most iconic characters within the series, that being Seto Kaiba, Jaden Yuki, and what is his name? Yugi Moto, play Dragon Warrior and Spellcaster respectively, they're gonna have a shit ton of support. So yeah, obviously Spellcaster has a ton of support. It's really, really good just across the board. This is Fairy, this isn't Spellcaster. Where the fuck is Spellcaster? This one's Spellcaster. Sorry, hold on. Forgive my confusion. That one is Spellcaster. But I did want to talk about Spellcaster next. But yeah, Spellcaster is absolutely insane. I just realized this is Winged Beast. I don't know what the fuck this is. Uh-oh. We'll get to that in a second. Oopsie poopsie. It's fine, I fixed it. Yeah, Spellcaster is insane. Has a ton of really good support, has a ton of really good decks. Just across the board, I can think of a lot of like really impactful Spellcaster monsters, things like Summon Sork or Selene or Spiral Master Plan, right? You also have the new Magician Soul, new-ish Magician Souls. You know, in the past you had things like Jaugen and the spell books to contest one of the most overpowered archetype or decks of all time in Dragon Rulers. Yeah, Spellcaster definitely has the ability to compete. It's not quite up there with Dragon and or it's not, you know, above Warrior or Dragon, but it's definitely up there, and it's definitely S tier. Okay, next up we have Fairy. Fairy is, I think, I struggle to think of. Fairy's interesting because Fairy has very little that it does well. Is this a D tier? Fairy is like really bad. I think it's slightly better than some of the other D tier stuff. I think it's around Dinosaur. There isn't really a specific deck that I can think of that really like popped off. Agents were pretty good in the past. That's kind of it. Not really much else. Dark Lords are good. They're fun. Okay, I shouldn't say they're good. They're fun. They're not very good. I'm sure I'm missing a fairy. Like a fairy deck that was like really, really good. I'm sure I'm missing something. I know that there's like some decently good fairies. I know for example, Apo is a fairy, which happens to make it slightly better. And a bunch of other cards like that are just like randomly fairies that happen to be fairly decent. But for the most part, fairy doesn't really have a whole lot going for it, right? It's very similar in nature to like Dinosaur, where it's like, yeah, Dinosaur has like 4 or 5 good cards and then like a whole bunch of other cards that exist. But like, fairy is very similar. Oh, it's all of the branded stuff. There's like a bunch of the, not branded, but Despia in particular. A bunch of the Despia cards happen to be fairy. But other than that, even with that being said, the Despia stuff hasn't really been all that useful. Like, it's been good, it's been okay, but like, it's not insane. So for the most part, I feel like outside of Agents in the past, and then branded more recently, or Despia more recently, they haven't really done much. So there you go. I think Dino still would. I'd put them ahead. Yeah, there's that. I'm actually gonna move Beast down. I think Beast is just not as good. I think it was overrating it. Not gonna lie. Lots of good like individual cards, but no like real outstanding decks. I could be wrong. Let me know down below in the comments if you disagree. Next up we have Fiend. Fiend has become a lot better. I think in the early days it wasn't really all that useful, but in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It really has shot up, and it has become one of the better types just across the board. I don't think it's as good as Beast Warrior, but it definitely has a lot more going for it now. And on top of that, in the past as well, it had a few other notable tops. It had a few other notable decks, things like DDD and the like, but for the most part, it has shot up in recent years, and even more recently, like 2024, where it's really started to show up. And because of that, I think it genuinely has become one of the best types in the game. Yeah, and I think another big reason is like it never really was a bad type, right? Similar to things like Winged Beast, where it just kind of has it had stuff going for it for a while. Okay, which one of these is which? Which one is Fish? Which one is Sea Serpent? And which one is Aqua? I believe this one's Aqua, right? This one's just randomly Aqua. This one I believe is Sea Serpent, and this one is Fish. I could be wrong. It could be something else, but I'm gonna go with that. Fish, Sea Serpent, and Aqua are all pretty bad. Aqua's slightly better, I think. Or is it Fish that's better? I think it's actually Fish. I think Fish is the one that I'm thinking of. That's slightly better. But for the most part, the reason none of these individually are all that good is because they're supposed to be synergistic. So, like, a Fish Sea Serpent deck is going to be significantly better than something that is just Fish, right? With one exception, that being Goaty. But Goaty's not all that good anyway. But overall, like, none of these strategies in particular are synergistic because, none of these types are individually by themselves very good. Oftentimes, it is a water deck, right? And so they're synergistic by the fact that they are water, or the fact that they are Fish, Sea Serpent, and Aqua, and kind of put them all together. However, again, individually, they're really bad. They are not, like, that great of types individually, right? Like, think of cards or archetypes that are utilizing Fish, right? There's not that much. They're not really doing a whole lot. It's better, right? Obviously, you have, like, Goaty, and you have, like, Sharks and stuff like that. So, like, there's a few things here or there, but there's nothing particularly, like, stand out about Fish, right? You can think of, like, some water stuff, right? But not necessarily Fish. Same thing with Aqua, same thing with Sea Serpent, right? There's nothing really stand out from any one of those individual types. However, when you put them together, you get things like Mermail, you get things like Atlantean, you get things like Toad, right? The Toads are pretty good. Although the Toads, I think, are Aqua, right? Like, they're all Aqua. So maybe it's a little bit higher, right? But again, it's one of those things where it's like across the board, they're not really all that great in terms of like their strategies and their ideas. I'd have to. I think Toads are Aqua, right? So maybe I move this one up. Sea Serpent, I know is just like really, really bad. But like other than that, right? Not a whole lot going on with either of those types. Let's move on. I have no idea what this one is. What is this one? This is Zombie? No. Zombie's this one. Who are you? What is this one? Oh, it's Illusion. Illusion just doesn't have enough cards. Yeah, Illusion is just bad right now. Realistically, like, none of the Illusion cards are necessarily bad, except for that one, like, vanilla that they gave us for some reason. But for the most part, not good. Next up, we have Insect. Insect is... Look, Maxi does exist. Insect is bad. Insect is really bad. Insect has, like, no good decks. It has never really been in top tier consideration, and yet it's still better than Sea Serpent because it still has Max C. But you know, outside of Max C, outside of like literally that individual card and the C archetype, they don't really have anything. You know, oh, the Bee Troopers exist. They're insect. Yeah, I guess Insector. You're right. Insector does exist, and it was really good. Do I put it up? Do I put it up here? I don't know. Yeah. You know, yeah, you're right. It does go there. Next up we have Machine. Machine is absolutely crazy. Machine is, yeah. It's not quite the top 3, but it's right there, right below, I would say. I don't know. Machine might be actually better than Spellcaster now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I would say overall Machine is probably a little bit weaker than Spellcaster. I think across the board, I think Spellcaster has had... I think it's... Machine has had more decks. Spellcaster has had more cards that have been individually good. So it kind of depends on your value. But overall, I think Spellcaster is a bit stronger, and Machine is very close. But I still think it's in a tier below. But yeah, very, very strong. Lots of very good decks. Lots of iconic monsters as well. And lots of very strong monsters at that. Next up, we have Plant. Plant is a solid B tier, probably above the Winged Beast. Lots of just solidly good cards. Obviously, right now, we have like the Rika Plant Link strategy that has been utilizing basically every plant under the sun. But in the past, we've also had like Lone Fire and Giga Plant and a myriad of other plant type strategies. Or strategies that center around plant-type monsters and what have you. So, for the most part, it's still good, right? It's just been good across the board. Not insane, but pretty decent. Next up, Psychic. Psychic is interesting. Psychic is very interesting. I feel like Psychic has had several decks and several strategies that have been really good. From Virtual World to Cosmo to even just early on with... I want to call it Teller. It's not Teller. It's, the one that stopped attacks? Teledad. Yeah, is it Teller? Anyway, Teledad, right? The Psychic Teller, I think. Dear Lanta, I'm probably butchering that. But, you know, with Teledad... as well being Psychic related, just like throughout the history of the game, Psychic has done really well. It's mostly done well with like specific archetypes, but even with that being said, the actual Psychic type monsters have always been fairly good, right? Mostly due to E-Telly being absolutely insane, but yeah. Oh, that's why it's called Telling. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about with Teller. I'm losing my mind. It's fine. So, there's that. Next up, we have Pyro. Now, Pyro, right now, is an S tier. S tier type. Across the board, like, prior to 2023, it was D tier. Genuinely. It was so bad. However, 2023 and 2024 did happen. And, yeah, now it's a B tier. That's how much better it got. It's probably better than Winged Beast at this point. It received an insane amount of support. An insane amount of support. Genuinely making it an incredible type now, allowing you to, you know, if something happens to be Pyro type, it now has a lot going for it. It has the ability to potentially synergize with Snake Eyes, it has the ability to be searched out with Bonfire, and it has the ability to go into a variety of actual boss monsters now, which is very nice. But even with that being said, they're still lacking a lot of things like boss monsters and the like, because guess what? Flumberg is a dragon. It's not Pyro. Isn't that cool? But yeah, they're still missing a lot in terms of actual like viability in terms of like the type itself. But it's still good, still very strong, and you still have volcanics, which are very, very powerful. So yeah, there you go. Next up, we have Reptile. Reptile, I genuinely think is just bad. Yes, Kage Tokage exists, as well as King of the Feral Imps and stuff like that. You can make like rank 4s back in the day and stuff like that. You know, make a big end board, yada yada. But for the most part, reptiles have not really done, like, anything at all. I genuinely struggle to think of a reptile deck that did anything. Because most of the time, if they're a reptile deck, they'll synergize with dinosaur, and then dinosaur will be like the boss monsters and will be the big baddies. There is very, very few. There's been like one reptile deck, and it is Ogdoadic, and that is still not a good deck. There you go. Next up we have Rock. Rock is a solid C tier. It had one stint of playability where it was good, and it was Adamantipator where it was the best deck, not even, and it wasn't close. And they have one card that is banned, and that is Block Dragon, because that one card is insane. Because Block Dragon. Other than that, really bad. Honestly, I kind of want to put it down here. But Adamantipator really does bring it up. It was that good. What is this one? Electric? What? What are you? What is this one? What is this one? I know zombie. I know zombie. I'll look at the types in a second and I don't figure out the other ones. Zombie is, I think, a solid B tier. Probably the top of B. Zombie has had a large stint of, like, rogue, mostly, playability. There was a few instances where, like, zombie decks are good in, like, Edison format and stuff like that. But for the most part, across the board, zombie has just been, like, rogue tier at best. But even with that being said, they've consistently had good decks and good cards, and have never really kind of fallen out of favor. They've always been just, like, right there. Oh, Eldritch is zombie. I'm stupid. Yeah, they had that as well. Like, that also existed. Which was definitely top tier. So, there you go. But yeah, zombie is pretty good. Let me figure out what these last three are. Alright, I'm back. So, this one is Creator God, which is only playable... Sorry. It's not playable. You cannot play this in a recognized play. All of the cards are like prize cards, and none of them are actually playable. So, of course, they're above Divine Beast. They're creator gods. They created the Divine Beasts. What? Yeah. But literally illegal for tournament play. Hilarious. Then you have Thunder, which is pretty interesting. Thunder's kind of weird, because Thunder doesn't really have much going for it. However, it does have one of the best archetypes ever created, that being Thunder Dragons. Thunder Dragons is absolutely insane and has seen a lot of support. But, like, across the board, they don't really have all that much. However, because of, like, Thunder Dragons does bring it up quite a bit. And there were a few other stints of playability for Thunder monsters in particular, due to like Battery Men and stuff like that. And there's been a few boss monsters as well that have been Thunder. So, yeah, they've been okay, but not anything too great. I'll put them below Beast. And then this one is Worm. Now, Worm is interesting because it's so heavily tied to Dragon, it really does kind of pull it up quite significantly. Like, there are very few bad Worm monsters, right? However, there's just so few of them. It's one of the less supported archetypes across the board. Archetypes, types, specifically. So, because of that, it's not really all that great. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is basically it for the list, I would say. And, yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You got a lot of stuff right here in the middle, and then you got a bunch of top tier, and you got a few top tier and a few low tier, and that's basically it. I do think Illusion will probably see a swift rise in the typing ranking. It's just the newest type hasn't really gotten much support. I think it's got like 2 sets of support thus far, maybe 3. I think we've had 3 sets with Illusion monsters, but it's very, very rare, and they don't often actually do anything. So there you go. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, let me know down below if you agree or disagree. Obviously, I don't think anyone's gonna argue with these 3. Well, with these 2. Maybe they'll argue with Spellcaster, but thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support. and I hope you enjoy the content.